Welcome to the podcast for Vote on Purpose, a nonprofit here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, focused on making you an educated, informed voter. My name is Meredith Louder. I'm one of the co-founders here.
And I am Brian Simpers, the other co-founder, and our goal is to build a community of more informed and empowered voters. And by doing that, we're going to be providing the information on potential candidates and their offices that they're trying to pursue.
We just want to make sure that you have the best knowledge possible when it is voting day, November 3rd of 2020, so that you don't vote straight party, that you make those choices that will be best for you and your family and your community.
Exactly.
This evening we have Mike Silver here, who is running for District Court Judge in Forsyth County this November 3rd, 2020. We've got Brian, who is my other half of the nonprofit here. We've got some questions we want to ask Mike tonight to help make your vote what's the word we like to use? An educated vote. Informed and educated vote. So just a quick little background about Mike. He's got a nice website, MikeSilverforJudge.com, where you can view all of his info. But currently, Mike is an administrative law judge, a professor, and an active volunteer in the community. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian. He's got some questions for Mike. And Mike, thanks for being here with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Mike, taking the time out of your schedule just to sit down and chat with us just a little bit.
I appreciate y'all's time. Y'all got kids, and it's all this is hard,
Right, definitely, especially the current climate of what's going on, for sure. So yeah, man, we just want to jump right in and just try to get people aware of who Mike Silver is and what he's about. Had a specific question I kind of want to ask you, kind of to touch on your knowledge of what's going on in the court systems and how everything works. Mm-hmm. Specifically with underrepresented communities, do you feel there is a underrepresentation of women of color or minorities in the court system?
Yes. I think the last stat I saw, there's 4% of the attorneys are African American. And so, plus minus that could be 6% or something. But the bottom line is people of color are just underrepresented in the practice of law. And what we need to do as lawyers and kind of as a community is build that infrastructure up. So when I was in law school, I started the Black Male Study Group at North Carolina Central School of Law. And so the attrition rate for Black men at Central was just so high. Attrition rate means just after the first year, they weren't asked to come back because of the grades. So what I did and some friends, we created a study group. We got all the Black men in the room, and we helped them weekly with their work and helping them learn and making sure that they got their grades right to decrease the attrition rate. And it really worked. In Alamance County, District Court Judge Larry Brown is a former mentee of mine, and all over the state. I mean, Jesse McCoy, who's at Duke School of Law now, he does a lot of housing work and like landlord-tenant law. He's a big advocate down there. He's one of our guys, and I mean, I could go on and on about a lot of the guys, but it's those things that you got to do, right? And it starts at an early age and getting kids comfortable. I did not always want to be a lawyer, right? When I talk to kids at Winston-Salem State at A&T, where I went to school, kids will say, "I've always dreamed of being a lawyer," and I'm so envious because I didn't.
Wow.
Like I had no clue. I was a high school kid who played sports and did regular high school stuff. One of the things that we try to tell the kids, though, which is so important, which is you don't have to figure it out today, because I didn't know, but you can't put barriers in the way that are going to prevent you down the road, right? And so that's one of the things that we have to work on as well. It's not just getting people in the profession and say, "Hey, we're going to get you to law school," but we got to get kids in a place that if they want to go to law school, they're not barred because their grades are deficient or their reading comprehension is deficient, and they won't even have the ability to apply. So that's why I'm in the school so much. That's why I'm big brother, big sister. That's why we do senior academy at Carver. That's why we read to the kids at Ashley Elementary. I mean, we have to do things to make sure that whatever they want to do. If they decide they want to be a nurse practitioner, if they decide they want to be, a executive at a bank,
Right.
all of it's cool.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the skills before you get there, you wind up having these significant barriers to stop you down the road.
Mhm.
Now, getting kids to law school once they're in undergrad, look, it's a game. It's a LSAT and it's a GPA. And if you're like me, I was an education major, right? I did not go to undergrad to be a lawyer. I was an elementary education major. I was a fifth grade school teacher out of undergrad.
Okay.
But I had the grades and I had the ability to take those tests, right? But we got to work with kids early when they get there to say, hey, listen, we're not saying you're going to go to law school, but we still got to get your grades right.
Right.
We're not saying that you're going to go to medical school, but we still need to get your math together.
Exactly.
Right. So if you do decide one day, like, hey, I think I'm going to take that route, that is available to you.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. You got to have the building blocks in place to then build a career or whatever you want to do. Because if you start faltering in one area, that's going to really stop you from having those avenues and those choices down the line. So that makes total sense. So with that in mind, I mean, do you feel like there's, even though you can have the building blocks, you can have those grades, because to a lot of people, there's some systemic racism, systemic issues that'll stop a male, stop a female. If you come from this background, how do you, address that, look at that, or even kind of tie that into, what you want to do?
Well, like that's also part of it. So
Right.
when, like, as a person in the profession, how are we selecting our interns, right? Are we selecting interns in an equitable way that's giving everybody an opportunity to shine? And when we're selecting interns, are we giving them the proper work that allows them to grow and show that their competency? And if we're not being equitable in opportunities, right? That's really one of the big things when you talk about how do we get people on. Most people intern at a place and then go to work there.
Yeah.
And so if you're not given opportunities and you're not being deliberate about it, right? And not just saying, oh, I'm gonna do these blind resumes. No, you have to really be deliberate and say, no, I am seeking particular candidates to make sure that they have an opportunity to succeed. And in the event that they don't succeed, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You go get another one. And you say, okay, like this intern, sometimes I've had bad interns from certain schools. That doesn't make their school bad. That was just a bad experience. It doesn't mean, we'll never have that school again as an intern, right? You go right back to the well.
Right.
And so we have to make sure we're continually giving experiences. But it also comes with like how offices are structured. Our offices structured in a way that people who are making decisions are conscious of it, right?
Right.
And when I was in the DA's office, Jim O'Neill, I worked for Tom Keith and Jim O'Neill, who's the current elected DA.
Okay.
And in that office, I was a district court supervisor as a black male. My supervisor for general felons was a Hispanic female. The chief assistant, who was basically second in command of the whole office, is an African American female.
Wow.
The entire sex crimes team are African American females.
Wow.
And so a lot of leadership was had minority representation.
So was that deliberate? You think they consciously were trying to make sure that those folks had a chance to prove themselves or make it make sense?
I think it was deliberate, but I also think that it helped that my supervisor was incredible. Liz Vasquez was just a really great attorney. Our chief assistant is one of the I was a trial partner of hers for a murder case and just learned a lot. She's an incredible trial attorney.
Wow.
Our sex crimes unit, Pansy Glanton and Kia Chaves, I say our when I was in the DA's office, but
Right.
they're just all great attorneys and they're all really smart and they're good people. And so, but I do think it was deliberate to say, no, we're going to have minority representation. Yeah. So the people who are screening habitual felons, the people who are deciding how cases are going to go,
right,
that it's not just all privileged people who have backgrounds that don't necessarily lend themselves to understand a lot of situations that come before